2 weeks. That is how long it took them to replace me. 31 years I gave that company. 31 years of early mornings and late nights and weekends I told my family I would make up to them, and never fully did. 31 years of being the first one in and the last one out, and never once calling in sick because I genuinely believed, that the kind of loyalty I was giving would be returned in kind. And 2 weeks after I walked out of that building for the last time, there was a younger man sitting at my desk using my phone, and nobody on that floor was saying my name anymore. I am 79 years old, and I need you to hear what I am about to say. Not as a warning, as a confession, because I was you once, and I made choices that I cannot undo. And if telling you about them saves you from making the same ones, then these words will have been worth more than anything I produced in 3 decades of dedicated employment. I started at the company in 1971. I was 24 years old, freshly married, full of the kind of energy that makes you feel like the rules of exhaustion do not apply to you. The company was mid-sized, manufacturing sector, nothing glamorous, but it was stable, and it was mine. And from the very first week I decided I was going to be indispensable. That word, indispensable. I held on to that word like it was a life raft for 30 years. I built my entire professional identity around it. I made myself the person who knew everything, who handled everything, who could be called on a Saturday and would answer, who took on the projects nobody else wanted, because I believed that being needed was the same as being valued. I believed that right up until the moment I found out it was not. My wife Carol used to say I was married to that company. She said it lightly at first, the way you say things when you are hoping the other person will laugh and change. Then she said it more quietly. Then she stopped saying it altogether, which was worse. We raised 2 children in that house, and I was present for the photographs and absent for most of the in-between. My son Thomas learned to ride a bike on a Sunday afternoon while I was on a call in the next room. He learned from the neighbor's teenage boy who happened to be outside. He never told me that at the time. He told me 30 years later at Thanksgiving, and the table went very quiet, and I sat there with my fork in my hand, not knowing what to do with my face. I want to tell you about a man named Dennis, who worked in the same department as me for 22 years. Dennis was quieter than me, less ambitious in the visible way, the kind of worker who did excellent work without needing anyone to notice it. His wife had some health problems in his early 50s, and Dennis started leaving at 5 every day without apology. He stopped taking work home. He stopped answering emails after hours. A few people in the office talked about it in the way people talk about someone who has stopped competing, with a mixture of judgment and secret envy. I was one of those people. I thought Dennis had checked out. I thought he had stopped caring. Dennis retired at 63 with a pension, a healthy wife, 3 grandchildren he saw every week, and a vegetable garden he had apparently been tending for 15 years that I never knew about. I went to his retirement party and stood there watching him laugh with his family, and felt something I could not name at the time. I understand it now. It was recognition. I was watching a man who had figured out what I had not. Dennis had decided somewhere in his early 50s that the company would take everything he let it take, and he had simply decided what he was and was not willing to let it take. He drew a line. He held it. And on the other side of that line, his actual life had been quietly continuing, growing, accumulating meaning in the way that a garden grows, slowly and without drama, and with tremendous patience. Dennis left behind a desk. I left behind a legacy of the company. The outcomes look the same from the outside. They are not the same. Now, if you have been watching this channel for any time at all, you already know that what we talk about here is not what most people want to hear. We talk about the things that only make sense after enough years have passed to see them clearly. And if you are not subscribed yet, I want you to do that right now. Hit that subscribe button and the bell icon, because the conversations we have on this channel are the kind that people tell me later they needed to hear years before they found them. I do not want you to miss what is coming. Go ahead and do it now, and come right back, because I am not finished. The morning I was let go was a Tuesday in September. I was 62 years old. The restructuring, that was the word they used, had been announced 2 weeks earlier, and I had genuinely believed my position was safe. I had made myself indispensable, remember. That was the whole plan. The meeting lasted 11 minutes. I know because I looked at my watch when I sat down and looked at it again when I stood up. 11 minutes to close 31 years. They were not cruel about it. That almost made it worse. They were professional and efficient, and there was a folder with paperwork already prepared, and a number on a check that was meant to represent what 3 decades of my life had been worth to them. And I took the folder, and I walked to my car, and I sat there in the parking lot for 45 minutes, not knowing what to do with my hands. 2 weeks later, there was a younger man at my desk. I know because I drove past the building on a Wednesday morning. I do not know why I drove past the building, and I could see through the window from the parking lot, and there was someone else there already. Same desk, different name on the email. The project I had spent 4 years building was still running, which I suppose should have been a point of pride, but what it actually felt like was the confirmation of something I have been refusing to understand. The company did not need me. The company had never needed me the way I had needed the company. I had been a resource, well used, well valued within the limits of what a company can value a person, but a resource. And when the resource was no longer cost-effective, the resource was replaced. This is not cruelty. It is just the honest nature of the arrangement. And I had spent 31 years pretending the arrangement was something more personal than it was. Carol got sick 2 years after I retired. Nothing sudden. A slow illness that required a lot of presence and patience, and the willingness to simply be in the room with someone who needed you there. And here is the thing I will say about that period that I never expected to say. It was the most connected I had felt in decades. Being needed by someone who loved me and whom I loved. Being genuinely indispensable in the way that only a husband can be indispensable to his wife for 40 years. That was the version of the word I had been reaching for my entire career without knowing it. I had been looking for it in a building full of colleagues who would replace me in 2 weeks. It had been in my own house the whole time, waiting for me to come home early enough to find it. I want to ask you something right now, and I want you to actually answer it in your own head before you keep watching. If the company you work for let you go tomorrow morning, how long before the work continued without you? How long before the desk had a new name, and the projects kept running, and the meetings still happened? A week? 2 weeks? A month at the outside? And now I want you to ask a different question. If you were gone from your family tomorrow, from your home, from the people who love you, how long before that was simply fine? How long before that stopped mattering? Take your time with that one, because the gap between those two answers is the gap where your real life is happening. and most of us spend that real life at the office. This is exactly the kind of thing I want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now and tell me honestly. Have you ever felt like the job was taking more than it was giving back? I read these. I want to know what your version of this story looks like, because I suspect it is closer to mine than you want to admit. I spent 3 years after retirement being angry. Not at the company, not really. They had only done what companies do. I was angry at myself for the choices I had made with full freedom, and had called them sacrifices when they were actually just priorities I had never been honest enough to examine. I was angry that I had told myself the story of the dedicated provider, when the real story was that the work made me feel important in a way I did not know how to find anywhere else. Ambition dressed up as devotion. I believed my own performance of it for 30 years. That is the part that takes the longest to make peace with. What I know now at 79, that I did not know at 40, is that the job is a transaction, a fair one hopefully, a satisfying one if you are lucky, occasionally even a meaningful one, but a transaction. You give your skills and your time, and in return you receive compensation and structure and a daily reason to get dressed. That is the honest version of the deal, and there is nothing wrong with that deal as long as you do not confuse it for something it is not. The mistake is not working hard. The mistake is working hard at the expense of everything the work was supposed to be building toward. I worked hard for 31 years to provide a good life for my family, and somewhere in the middle of that I stopped showing up for the actual life I was providing for. I funded it, I just was not present in it. And money can build a house, but it cannot sit with you at the kitchen table, and it cannot remember the way you laughed, and it cannot hold your hand in a hospital room at 2 a.m. There is a comment I want you to leave before you finish watching today. Tell me one thing you have been putting off for work. One thing you have been saying next month or next year, or when things slow down. Write it in the comments. Because I think when you write it down and see it there in plain text, something shifts. Something that has been easy to postpone becomes harder to keep postponing. I have seen this happen in this community over and over, and I want you to have that moment if it is available to you. I do not regret the work. I want to be careful to say that because it would be dishonest to pretend otherwise. I built things I am proud of. I provided for my family in ways that mattered. I had colleagues I respected and work that used my mind, and there were years of it that were genuinely good. I am not standing here telling you to quit your job and sit in a field. I am standing here at 79 telling you to hold the job in the right hand. The hand that knows it is a tool and not an identity. The hand that can put the tool down at 6 o'clock and walk into the rest of your life and be fully present there. That is the balance I did not find until it was almost too late to use it. Carol is still here. She recovered slowly and not completely, but she is here. We eat dinner together every evening, and we watch the evening news, and she falls asleep in her chair sometimes, and I sit there watching her breathe, and I think about all the evenings I missed. I do not think about them with despair anymore. I have made my peace with most of it, but I think about them clearly and honestly, because I think that kind of clarity is what you owe yourself after enough years have passed. If you are watching this and you are 40 or 50 or even 60 and you are still in the middle of it, still in the building, still answering emails after dinner, still telling your family just a little longer, I am asking you to hear this from someone who has been all the way to the end of that road and come back to tell you what is there. The building will replace you, not because you were not good enough, because that is what buildings do. They continue. They are designed to continue without any one person being irreplaceable. Your family is not designed that way. The people who love you are not designed that way. You are not a resource to them. You are the whole point. And the whole point should probably get home for dinner. 2 weeks. That is what 31 years was worth to them. I am not bitter about it anymore, but I am honest about it. And I think honesty is the thing that might actually reach you where motivation cannot. If this landed somewhere real for you, if something I said today sounded like something you have been thinking, but not saying out loud, then subscribe to this channel right now and hit that bell icon, because this is what we do here. We say the things out loud, every week. And the people who find this channel keep telling me they wish they had found it sooner. Do not let that be you. Subscribe now, watch more, and bring someone with you who needs to hear this. That desk with the new name on it is not a tragedy. Not using the time you got back, that is the tragedy. Use the time. That is all I have got for today.